Hello, you are listening to the Wellness Project with Des. I'm your host, Desiree, a mental health therapist and holistic wellness coach. On my podcast, I interview experts in the field of mental health and wellness, as well as those who share their firsthand accounts of their mental health journeys. These interviews will give you many tips, tools, and strategies to improve your mental health, as well as give you hope, support, encouragement, and inspiration on your own personal mental health and wellness journey. Thanks so much for being here. I would greatly appreciate it if you took a moment to leave me a review on iTunes and leave the podcast 5 stars on Spotify. It really helps the podcast to grow, which in turn helps me to keep bringing on amazing guests and spreading mental health and wellness education and support. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode. Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey towards holistic well-being, unlocking the full potential of your mind, body, and spirit? If so, I'm thrilled to invite you to my program, the Holistic Wellness Transformation Coaching Program. My one-to-one coaching program is a comprehensive and individualized approach to help you improve your overall well-being. As a holistic wellness coach, I'm here to guide you on a transformative journey to attain balance and harmony in all areas of your life. With personalized coaching sessions, I'll offer guidance and support throughout your wellness journey. Starting with a thorough holistic assessment. We'll dive into your past, habits, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and patterns that may be holding you back and no longer serving you. This assessment forms the foundation for your customized wellness plan. Together, we'll explore the 8 foundational elements of wellness to ensure you feel balanced and aligned with your goals and your values. This program goes beyond the surface, providing you with mental and emotional support. I will help you to manage stress, anxiety, and other challenges such as perfectionism and people-pleasing, offering techniques and strategies to enhance your resilience and your skills. The benefits of this program cannot be overstated. I'll be there every step of the way to support you in achieving balance and harmony in your life, manage stress, and improve your emotional well-being. Nurture healthy connections, create lasting, healthy habits, achieve your goals, and gain confidence in your ability to transform your life. Join me on this journey to holistic wellness. You could go to my website to check out my various packages, and you could go to my Calendly link found in the show notes to schedule a free 30-minute consultation call where we will go over the 8 core areas of wellness, as well as your goals and your dream life. Reach out and let's get started on your wellness journey so you can finally live the life you want. Hey there, I'm your host Des, and you are listening to episode number 172. And on today's episode, I am speaking with Alisha Carlson, and she is going to share with us her experience, her own personal journey with disordered eating, an unhealthy relationship to exercise, and body dysmorphia. I know we've had quite a few people on the podcast talking about disordered eating, and I think it's such an important topic because we don't always realize how the media is impacting us, how diet culture is impacting us and the decisions that we make each day. And that's why I'm really glad that we have Alisha on here today, because she's going to talk with us about how the diet industry preys on our insecurities and encourages unhealthy eating habits that are doing a detriment not only to our bodies, but our mental health, our self-esteem, our self-worth. This is going to be a great conversation because Alisha also talks with us about how she was able to get healthy and shift her mindset and shift her habits to more healthy habits, a healthy mindset, and a healthier relationship with food. So many of us struggle with disordered eating, so you may be surprised at how much of this applies to you. I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode, and Alisha shares a lot of information. This is very educational, but also she gives us steps that we can take to improve our relationships with our body and with food. Help me welcome Alisha. Hi, Alisha. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So, before we get started on our great discussion about body dysmorphia and disordered eating, I would love if you can get us started by introducing yourself, sharing your story with us.
Yeah, so my name is Alisha Carlson. I live in Oregon. As of the time of this recording, it is like grass seed everywhere. So allergies are definitely in full swing. I am a wife, I'm a mom of two. I do fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle coaching. More specifically, I do a non-diet based lifestyle coaching specifically for women, but I do work with both men and women. And it really, like a lot of the work is actually coming out of healing from a lot of diet mentality, a lot of body image issues and shame and things like that around food. Like most coaches, this area of study or focus for me really was born out of my own experience with much of what we'll be talking about today around disordered eating, body dysmorphia, poor body image, those kinds of things. So I am thankful for all of the struggle that I had because it's definitely led me to where I'm at now. And I feel super thankful that I get to help other women essentially find that same kind of freedom so that they really can step in and live their life to the full without constantly being bogged down with thoughts around food, their weight, their bodies, and those kinds of things.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And I'm wondering, can you define in your own words disordered eating for us?
Yeah. I mean, I know like some of the more formal terms, it's really is just like any sort of deviation from like what would be considered like quote unquote normal eating. However, when I think about that specific definition, I think by and large, unfortunately, a lot of what we would deem as like normal, again, I'm using the air quotes there, behaviors around food could be categorized as disordered. So if I were to describe it, I would say disordered eating would be any type of eating that sort of hinders or impedes on you living a lifestyle that is really free of additional stress and sort of obsessive thinking about food. In our society, it's pretty normal to be like constantly thinking about calories or macros or, thinking about, oh, this is a good food, this is a bad food. But I think really at the end of the day, it's like if food is taking up more mental, emotional, and physical time than what it really should be, then that would be something to kind of check into.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. That's a great way to put it. Would you also mind defining body dysmorphia for us as well?
Yeah. Again, like there's the technical terms, I think kind of high level. It's essentially like if you are looking at yourself in the mirror, the image that you're seeing in your brain does not necessarily match up to reality. Like the way that this manifested maybe in my own life or how I've seen it in a lot of women is like even at a pretty low body weight or even like body fat percentage, still feeling like I looked bigger than I actually was, right? So the way that I viewed my body or the way that I observed and saw my body did not necessarily match up to how other people saw me, right? So it's like, other people could look at you and be like, yeah, there's like absolutely nothing wrong with you. Or, this is the size that you are. But in your brain, there is sort of a disconnect between that.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. And so, can you bring us back and how young do you remember having issues with your eating, struggling with food, struggling with exercise?
I mean, I think looking back, like as a kid, probably I was like a pretty healthy, sort of normal eater where I don't really think that it took more time or more, energy than it needed to. I would also say that from a pretty young age, probably like late elementary, certainly into middle school, I was acutely aware of different body shapes, different body sizes, kind of sizing mine up or comparing mine to other friends or other girls that I perceived had like, again, like the quote, ideal body of being, thin or having a certain look and a certain appearance. As that was on my radar, in middle school, certainly in high school, there were certain periods of time, short lived, thankfully, where I would kind of toy with just not eating for a day, a couple of days. Again, like thank God it never like fully, turned into an eating disorder, but there were definitely those tendencies. And then hearing all sorts of chatter about food and about weight and about what a woman's body should look like from my mom, from my grandma, from aunts, magazines, TV shows, all those kinds of things. Anytime that I kind of saw or thought like, oh my gosh, my body doesn't fit this quote unquote ideal, I would definitely notice there would be some issues. So I would say, I became aware in elementary school, but I would say that I probably didn't really start to either kind of toy around with starvation or kind of dabbling with like diets or trying to exercise to lose weight until probably like late middle school, early high school.
And at what point did you realize that this was an issue, that you had an unhealthy relationship with food?
Honestly, it actually wasn't until, gosh, I've got to think like how old was I in 2018? I think I was 32 or 33. I probably was a little bit aware, like when I wouldn't eat, like, oh, this is probably nothing, like not something I should be doing. But I think the desire to like lose weight and to look a certain way was stronger. And so again, like that was very short lived, but I would say I really didn't recognize that, okay, the way that I've been approaching nutrition or diet and exercise is not really from a healthy or sustainable place was probably not until I was about 33 years old.
Okay, wow. Thanks so much for sharing that. So you went a long time with the disordered eating.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I would have definitely not said it was disordered eating, as I think most women, right? It's like statistically, they say, I think it's like 70 to 75% of women either have or are currently engaging in some form of disordered eating. So that's a pretty big population. I think it's a little bit of that saying, like a fish in water doesn't really recognize that it's in water. And so much of the messaging that promotes disordered eating is kind of like common, it's mainstay, it's what we would categorize as normal. That I think a lot of people could be potentially engaging in disordered eating and not really know about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Were you also experiencing the body dysmorphia during this time?
I would say that was probably heightened really during or kind of around and after my stint in figure competing. That's a sport that is like highly focused on your physique. What does it look like? Getting to a certain percentage of body fat, trying to be symmetric. So that was very hyper focused on the appearance of my body. And I would say that that was probably the point at which the body dysmorphia was the most heightened. And then after I kind of stepped away from that, stepped out of that, I don't know that the dysmorphia was quite so prevalent, but definitely constantly checking in the mirror, looking, what do I look like? Still kind of like sizing myself up to other women. When I say it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, this all sounds so silly, but it was very much like my reality for a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of people's reality, especially women, and we know that men experience this as well. So, how was your mental health during this time? I mean, obviously, body dysmorphia is a mental health condition, and it's kind of like what came first, right? The chicken or the egg. So, there's obviously mental health issues going on before the disordered eating, before the body dysmorphia, and that's kind of how it gets expressed. But how was this all throughout this journey? How was this on your mental health? How were you impacted?
I mean, I would say like definitely probably like stress and anxiety was heightened, during this time of like constantly trying to be in control of food and eating and my weight and what my body looked like. I do know too that previously, like before I had really like started dieting successfully, if there really even is such a thing, there was a period of time where I had anxiety, ended up going on anxiety meds for a little while, and then was able to kind of find some different things like the mindfulness, utilize yoga, and just like really being able to slow myself down and focus on breathing became something that was helpful. And I eventually ended up going off of the anxiety meds. So I think that when I look back at it and having talked to therapists kind of throughout, looking at my childhood and looking at certain things that I went through where much of my life felt very chaotic, very out of control, it makes sense that I really gravitated toward wanting to have something to control, wanting to be in control of something. I think also, too, there was probably a period of time with my parents and just some of the decisions that they were making that I'm sure on a surface level, like I knew that I was loved, but seeing some of their decisions, I think that there was something about that that was questioned too. So, not really having a sense of safety, not really probably feeling super loved. It makes so much sense that I was like trying to seek that attention in a way that seems like very normal, very, like getting complimented on your body and oh my gosh, you look great and all of these kinds of things. So again, I think like at the time, I don't know that I would have been like, oh my gosh, this is like taking a toll on my mental health. It wasn't until really like I wasn't constantly thinking about food or thinking about the scale or thinking about my body that I recognized like how much mental space that was taking up and just how much that was really, I think, hindering me from engaging with my husband or engaging with my kids in a way that was truly meaningful and like connecting because that was something that was just constantly on my mind.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to your loved ones, your parents, if you have siblings, your husband, was anybody aware at all that something was off, that you were struggling, or that what you were experiencing was disordered eating or body dysmorphia?
No, I mean, honestly, nobody ever voiced anything. And it's actually so interesting because there was a period of time where I remember being like the lightest I'd ever been on the scale, being like a size 0, which it's kind of funny that that's like even a size. And I get that there are some people that are naturally super thin and they struggle to put weight on. So I'm not making that comment to throw shade on that. But I just remember being in this place and kind of looking at pictures, and I didn't look like I had any sort of like eating disorder or disordered eating or anything like that. But I remember kind of having the thought, like, oh my gosh, like I'm surprised, or I can't believe that nobody was ever like, hey, like maybe you want to eat a cheeseburger or something like that. And so I think, again, like that's where a lot of this stuff is sort of problematic for a couple of reasons. One, I looked pretty healthy, like what the health and fitness industry would categorize as healthy. So it's not like I looked like maybe what we think somebody would look like if they were struggling with an eating disorder or even intense disordered eating. That being said, people can struggle with disordered eating and eating disorder, body dysmorphia at any shape or size. So I think, again, that's where we can sometimes get in trouble or people end up going misdiagnosed or undiagnosed because we think that an eating disorder or something like that would have like a very specific look. So yeah, nobody ever said anything. Again, I was actually complimented all the time, constantly getting praised for how lean I was, how muscular, like, oh my gosh, your arms, or oh my gosh, I wish I was that disciplined, and all of these different kinds of things, not really recognizing that I think it had kind of slipped across that very gray, fuzzy line of like being disciplined to being something that was disordered and unhealthy.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. And I'm wondering, so at what point did you realize that this was an issue for you and that you needed some sort of help or support?
Yeah, so I distinctly remember, I think it was late 2017 or early 2018. At the time, I was kind of working with a pretty well-known direct sales company, was getting ready to like start a new program and taking the pictures and feeling super discouraged and very defeated because at this point I had been, on stages. I have my degree in exercise science. I've been studying nutrition. Like I know all of the things to do and just feeling like a total failure, like, oh my gosh, I'm starting over again. And I just remember standing there in my kitchen being like, oh my gosh, like why is this so hard? If it truly is a lifestyle, why is living a healthy lifestyle so much harder than living an unhealthy lifestyle? Like, as a Christian, I believe it was the Lord that was like, it's because you've been dieting this whole time and calling it a lifestyle. So just hearing that little nudge, that wisdom of like, it's because it's the way that you've been approaching this. It's not necessarily like exercise. It's not necessarily trying to eat more vegetables or trying to make like healthier choices. That's the problem. But it really was the heart posture, the way that I was approaching it, and the fact that I was trying to use exercise and nutrition to heal some, wounds or traumas from, being a kid, and the way that I grew up, the messaging that I got, all of the messaging that we get out there from like the diet industry, a lot of the fitness and things like that really do tend to kind of prey on our deeper insecurities, right? And creates kind of this very specific look and way that we need to be or to show up, to be loved, to be enough, to be worthy, to be valuable, to be a part of society or a community, which creates some safety. And so really for me, that was kind of the turning point, and where it was like, oh my gosh, like, stop me in my tracks. I think at that point, I'd never heard the term diet culture, started kind of looking into the anti-diet movement, which there are certainly things within that I don't necessarily agree with. Started reading Health at Every Size, intuitive eating. And so that was really kind of the catalyst in the beginning of that healing journey for me.
Okay, great. I'm glad that you brought that up because I did want to ask, what were your next steps? What did your healing journey look like? If you could take us through that a little more in depth.
One thing I think is important to say kind of right off the bat is that if you are struggling with an eating disorder, if there's like binging, purging, starving yourself, like those kinds of things, then please do like seek out somebody that specializes in that specifically. There are times I think that we do need to go see like therapists and, work with specialists. There are times where working with a coach is enough, or kind of doing some of your own learning and unlearning can be enough. Just know kind of where you're at and get the help that you need. So all that to say, like, I've never formally worked with like a therapist or an eating disorder specialist or anything like that. For me, the healing journey, it was like once I realized that I had been approaching my healthy lifestyle through the lens of a dieter, or like as a diet, that really was, it was like all of a sudden there was just this awareness. And I wish I could remember exactly how it happened, but it was like I was introduced to the intuitive eating book and workbook, the Health at Every Size, found some anti-diet podcasts, just started to do some reading, started to do some, listening to just kind of hear this different perspective. And like I said, I had no idea that there was even a such thing as diet culture. Had never really heard that term. I think we're starting to hear that a little bit more. But for me, that was completely eye-opening. So I just started to read some different books, read books that I think were maybe a little bit more neutral when it comes to food and when it comes to like body and health and things like that. Kind of taking a lot of what we hear sort of in mainstream health, or, like from the healthcare and the diets and things like that, with a little bit of a grain of salt of just like, it's not necessarily just like the weight loss that makes somebody healthier, because somebody could lose weight by doing something that's very unhealthy, and so that's where for me, like really putting an emphasis on the lifestyle as a whole and like the behaviors was huge, and not necessarily just focusing or fixating on the result and the outcome.
And what kind of lifestyle changes did you make?
At that point, exercise and daily movement was really already just a part of who I am. So I think, it's not like I started exercising more or less, really. I think, I still try to move or exercise most days of the week. I get out and I walk. But I think the biggest difference for me is if I have a goal, let's say of like 10,000 steps, and like I think last night I got like 9,500. In the past, I would have been like, oh my gosh, like I've got to go for a walk, or I'm going to walk around the house until I get to that 10,000 steps. I would say, like, for some people, if you make a goal of like 10,000 steps, you might be at the place where it is important to like build that trust with yourself to like do it. But if you notice that it's becoming like hyper fixated, obsessive, those kinds of things, then you're probably creeping into some unhealthy territory. I mean, the way that I look at it, it's like I'm probably going to get some days where I'm way over. I'm probably going to get some days where I'm under. It all probably averages out to about 10,000 steps a day, so I don't worry about it too much. Same thing like with nutrition, I still try to eat like mostly whole foods, try to eat healthy, focus on, protein, veggies, those kinds of things, limiting alcohol, sugar, and treats. But again, like, I think it's more the mentality of like, if I have a cookie, I'm not like, oh my gosh, now I'm going to work out extra hard, or I'm going to do like an extra 15 or 20-minute thing to burn off the cookie. It's like, okay, I had the cookie. I enjoyed it. I'm moving on with the rest of my day, the rest of my life. For me, it was less maybe like the physical things and more like the mental aspect around food and exercise, of just not being as rigid, not being as strict with myself, not being as all or nothing or black and white, and just recognizing that it really is like what you do most of the time over a long period of time. Like, it's not these, make it or break it things in an individual moment or meal.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. Do you have any words of advice or wisdom for somebody that is struggling with disordered eating?
I guess assuming that that what you've been engaging in is like not healthy, even though it really like it looks healthy, but it's taking a toll on you, like mentally, emotionally, physically. Look at the signs and the symptoms that your body is giving you. Like, is there hair loss? Do you have a period? Like, all of those kinds of things are kind of some signals that there might not be something going right with your body. I think assuming that that something is off, or even if you just kind of have a hunch, you feel like you're kind of hitting the wall or losing motivation around exercise and nutrition, I think that's a good place to just kind of step back and really like explore, why am I doing this? What's going on inside of me? What am I maybe looking to a specific like outcome or goal to fulfill? So whether that's like weight loss, fat loss, having your body look a certain way, really just getting curious about like what's the driving factor behind this, depending on where you're at. If it is something that you feel like you need to see like a specialist or a therapist for, then find somebody that specializes in that. Otherwise, you could look for a coach that specializes in kind of helping people heal from disordered eating. Again, I think the intuitive eating, the Health at Every Size books were a great place for me to start. Since reading those things, I might kind of push back on some of the things, or I don't 100% agree with everything, and that's fine. But it was, at least for me, like those were two really good books to just kind of read and at least be made aware of like maybe some narrative that goes a little bit counter to kind of the overarching messaging around food and exercise and weight.
Oh, great. All great tips. And I definitely will include the link to those books in the show notes. And I've actually been wanting to read the intuitive eating book. I've heard great things.
Yeah, like I said, it was a great place to start. So I think, those two books can be extremely helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, everyone, I will include the link to those two books in the show notes. Alicia, this has been really great. I would love if you can share where everyone can find you.
Yeah, so I actually have my own podcast. It's called The Strong Her Way. And so that really is just like the non-diet approach to food, exercise, fitness, and lifestyle. You can also, if you're on Instagram, I'm at Alisha Carlson _. I'm also on Facebook. So yeah, come find me, message me if you have any questions. Always happy to just kind of provide some encouragement, whatever knowledge or wisdom that I have that I can pass along. Because, I think that was one thing. It was like I was just kind of learning and sort of figuring all of this out on my own. And so if I can help kind of speed up that healing process for somebody, then I'm always happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so, so important for people to have a go to and resources and also communities so that they don't feel alone.
Yes, 100%.
Everyone, I'm going to include all of Alicia's links in the show notes. Alicia, thank you so much for being here today. Do you have any last words of wisdom or advice or any thoughts that you want to share?
The one thing I would say, because I do know there have been times where it's been tempting to like go back to doing it a certain way, but just like remembering or reminding myself of like how much freedom and how much peace, just how much more fully I think I get to live and enjoy my life now that I'm not constantly thinking about food, thinking about my body, thinking about my weight. It really does just free you up so much to focus on the things that really and truly do matter, whether that's a relationship, whether that's your career or going back to school or starting a business or something like that. There just is so much more to us than the size of our pants or the number on the scale. And so, yes, like be healthy, take care of yourself, but don't let it be something that takes over your life.
Yes, I love that. I fully agree with that sentiment. Alisha, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story and all of these great tips and resources.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I really hope that you liked this episode and gained a lot of value from it. If you did like this episode, please share it on social media. You can tag me at The Wellness Project with Des on Instagram and at According to Des on Facebook. If you do enjoy my podcast and gain value from it, I would greatly appreciate your support. You can show your love and support by buying me a coffee. This will help my podcast to grow and in turn will help me to keep bringing on amazing guests. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/the wellness project with Des to show your support. All books written by or recommended by my amazing podcast guests are listed on my Amazon storefront. Go to the link in the show notes to check out those books. I would love to extend an invite to you to become a part of my community. You can do this through Facebook, where we will be discussing this episode. I would love for you to share your insights, any aha moments, any thoughts or ideas you would like to contribute. You can contribute in the discussion taking place in my Facebook group, and it's a great place to connect with me because I am in there every day with mental health and wellness content, discussions, reflections, journal prompts. It's a fun and supportive place to be. You can find the group at facebook.com/groups/according to Des, and that link will also be in the show notes. You can also check out more of what I'm doing on my website, accordingtodes.com. You'll find a lot of wellness blogs, written interviews, detailed podcast show notes, and my shop, where you will be able to find workshops, my self-care course, digital downloads, ebooks. There's a lot going on my website, so make sure you check that out at accordingtodes.com. And while you're there, join my email list to stay in the know about what I have going on and available for you. When you sign up, you will get your free ebook, The 5 Stress Reduction Techniques to help you feel more relaxed. Thank you so much for being here. I will talk to you next week. So until then, I hope you have a calm and peaceful week.